The Odyssey has only just begun, and already Homer's world looks very, very different from before. Hello and welcome back. Today we are continuing to read the great books of Western civilization, and we are now on the Odyssey. I'm using the Robert Fagel's translation. This is book 1, and as always I will start with a brief plot summary before getting into analysis and commentary. The poem begins with an invocation to the Muses, the goddesses of poetry. The poet asks them to sing of Odysseus, the man who fought and suffered trying to bring his comrades home, only to fail because of their own recklessness. Odysseus is now held prisoner on the island of the nymph Calypso, who wants to make him her husband. The year that Odysseus is destined to return finally comes, and most of the gods now pity him, except for Poseidon, the god of the sea, who remains enraged at him for some past offense. However, Poseidon is now far away, feasting with the Ethiopians, his favorite people. The gods meet for council without him. Zeus, king of the gods and lord of lightning, laments aloud how much suffering mortals bring upon themselves, even though they blame the gods for most of it. He says this most of all about Aegisthus, the man who murdered Agamemnon and courted his wife, before being killed himself by Orestes, the king's son. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and battle strategy, takes this opportunity to suggest that though Aegisthus got what he deserved, Odysseus, her own favorite mortal, deserves to be released from his suffering and imprisonment and be allowed to go home at last. Zeus agrees, hoping that Poseidon will get over himself quickly once he finds out what they are doing. Athena formulates a plan. Hermes, the messenger god, will go to order Calypso to release Odysseus, while she herself will go to Ithaca, Odysseus' home, to inspire his son Telemachus to stand up to his mother's suitors before setting out to see if there is any word about his father's return. Athena immediately leaves for Ithaca to do her part, disguising herself as Mentes, lord of the Taphians. She arrives at a festive scene as more than 100 young men swarm the house of Odysseus, feasting on livestock they have slaughtered and sating themselves with wine from the house's stores. They are all suitors, seeking to court Penelope, wife of Odysseus, who is believed, by them at least, to be dead. Telemachus, the son of Odysseus, sits amongst them with a heart obsessed with grief. He daydreams that his father might come home to drive everyone away. Telemachus notices Athena, disguised as Mentes, standing at the door, and immediately jumps up to receive her warmly, giving her a seat of honor in his house and ensuring that the servants give her whatever she wants. He sits by her side, in a less honorable seat, and the two watch as the suitors gorge themselves on food and drink before plunging into dancing and singing. Telemachus complains to her about the present situation, and laments how he will not see his father drive them away, for he's likely dead. He then launches into questioning her, suspecting that she may be here because she's an old friend of Odysseus. Athena maintains her facade as the Lord Mentes, and concocts a believable story about her home and family, and then shares that she is indeed a friend of Odysseus, and of Laertes, Odysseus' father. She shares her belief that Odysseus is not only alive, but will come home soon. She then questions Telemachus, asking for an explanation of the obscenely lavish scene in the house. Telemachus explains the situation. The nobles that are here courting Penelope, his mother, are all from Ithaca and the surrounding islands. Penelope has not rejected any suitor outright, nor favored any of them. Meanwhile, the suitors bleed the household dry of food, wine, and resources. Appalled, Athena tells Telemachus to order the suitors to leave, send his mother to her father's house if she decides to marry at all. Then he should set sail to Pylos and Sparta, seeking Nestor and Menelaus, his father's old comrades in arms, who surely must have heard something about whether Odysseus is alive or dead. If indeed Odysseus is discovered to be dead, then he can return and allow his mother to marry, and if not, she tells him, he must plot a way to kill and drive out these suitors. She rises to leave, and Telemachus offers her a parting gift, which she refuses for the time being. Telemachus realizes that this must have been a god. He rises with a new confidence and sternly warns the suitors that they must all leave by morning, threatening vengeance from Zeus if they do not. They ignore him and continue feasting into the night before all, including Telemachus, go to sleep. In the very first lines of the poem, we read the invocation to the Muse. Sing to me of the man, Muse, the man of twists and turns, driven time and again off course. These words, twists and turns, have many meanings. Odysseus' journey in this epic twists and turns and is very rarely straightforward, if ever. However, Helen used these same words to describe him back in the Iliad, Book 3, referring to his mind, his way with words, and his cunning. Thus, this descriptor now has a double meaning. As I said in the previous video, Odysseus and Achilles are two very different kinds of heroes. This not only shows in each hero's personality, but is also, apparently, symbolized to some extent in the structure of the story. Bernard Knox writes in the introduction to this epic that the relationship displayed time and again in the Odyssey is that between hosts and guests. However, it is rarely taking place in the manner that we are told that it should. We aren't told until much later what exactly that entails in the ancient world, but suffice to say that the way that Telemachus treats Athena when he first notices her in his hall, that was it. Whereas the suitors, who knowingly overstay their welcome, ignore Telemachus' requests to leave his house, court Penelope although she's obviously unwilling to choose any of them, and eat through all of their hosts' material goods, even though we are told several times that their own homes are nearby, that is not. Keep this relationship in mind as we go forward, because it keeps coming back time and again. Those of you that read the Iliad will notice a major character death is discussed right here in Book 1. Apparently, Agamemnon was killed upon arrival home from Troy by a man named Aegisthus. Aegisthus seduced Agamemnon's wife Clytemnestra during the war and schemed to murder the king once he came back from Troy. After this, the son of Agamemnon, Orestes, avenged his father. We learn more about these events as the epic goes on, and we hear different people talk about it. What's important about it for Book 1, though, are the gods' comments on the matter. Look at what Zeus says about the incident. "Ah, how shameless, the way these mortals blame the gods. From us alone, they say, come all their miseries, yes. But they themselves, with their own reckless ways, compound their pains beyond their proper share. Look at Aegisthus. Above and beyond his share, he stole Atrides' wife, though he knew it meant his own total ruin. Far in advance, we told him so ourselves. Would Aegisthus' hardened heart give way? Now he pays the price." This line is three things at once. It is, obviously, a comment on the killing of Aegisthus by Orestes, but it's also foreshadowing for many of the sufferings that will come from bad decisions made by human characters throughout the epic. But it is also a signal of a major philosophical shift for the ancient Greeks. The gods are no longer considered solely responsible for the pains or joys that mortals suffer. Now, there's a kind of admission that mortals can bring it upon themselves, too. This would never have been said in the Iliad. Among countless examples, Hector gets tricked by Zeus into being fixated on glory, and then later by Athena, who tricks him into fighting Achilles alone, and that leads to his death. Agamemnon, in his way, is tricked by Zeus into thinking he can take Troy without Achilles. This harsh pronouncement from Zeus about a mortal's responsibility for themselves may seem like a small change, but compared to what we observed to be believed in the previous epic, where almost every movement of life is instigated by a god, it is huge, and again, signals a huge development in the ancient Greeks' understanding of free will. If Homer did write this later in life, suggested in the previous video, this could be some hard-earned wisdom showing through. That's not the only development of this philosophical nature, though. There's an odd line at the beginning of the book that tells us of another possible development, this time in the understanding of fate. But then, when the wheeling seasons brought the year around, that year spun out by the gods when he should reach his home, then every god took pity, all except Poseidon. Metaphors having to do with yarn or weaving in Greek mythology usually have to do with fate, because of the Fates, who are three old women who are supposed to weave the events of a mortal's life together and cut the thread when it's time for them to die. Something along those lines. Typically, they spin out the events, and then the gods enforce it. At least, that's how it was in the Iliad, but here, it's different. Zeus's dialogue, which concerns an event that's fated to occur at that very time, backs this up. Lord Poseidon, I trust, will let his anger go. How can he stand his ground against the will of all the gods at once, one god alone? As if it was up to a vote. This, like the growing recognition of free will cause huge changes in the philosophical scene down the line, and we haven't even seen the whole of it yet from this epic. Like I said, the story of Agamemnon's death serves as both a warning to the world and foreshadowing for us to remember as we continue to read the Odyssey. Athena says of Aegisthus, the man who seduced Agamemnon's wife while he was still alive before plotting to murder him, "Let them all die so who do such things." She also spurs on Telemachus to be brave and take action against the suitors by holding up Orestes, the son and avenger of Agamemnon, as a model, implying that there's a similarity between the situations. You might say, as I did at one point, wait a second, that's a bit much, isn't it? The only similarity so far between that story and these suitors going after Penelope is that a man's wife is being sought after while he's still alive. But they don't know that Odysseus is still alive. It's not their fault. Sure, they eat through his food and help themselves to his house, and maybe that's a little bit Costanza-esque, but having them killed seems like a little bit much, right? No, it's not. Homer shows us that there is a lot more that is similar between the suitors' actions and Aegisthus' actions than we would first believe. Very clearly in the books to come, 2 and 3, but also subtly here in book 1. Let's go over what we know. First, they're eating, butchering, and drinking all of Odysseus' resources that are meant to be an inheritance to his son, one day at a time. And they ignore Telemachus when he asks them to leave, even when he warns of divine vengeance against them, all while insisting that he is free to be the lord of his own house and to rule his own lands. We spoke earlier about the relationship between hosts and guests and that hospitality. This would be an abuse of the tradition of hospitality, as well as pretty blatant gaslighting. Second, their intentions toward Penelope are less than honorable. How do we know? We can glean from the dialogue throughout this book that there are 2 people with the authority to give Penelope in marriage to the suitors, but not, please note, against her will. These are Telemachus, Odysseus' son, who is presumed to inherit all of Odysseus' power and property, including the house where Penelope now lives, and Penelope's own father. The suitors, however, have made no effort at all to earn the respect of either of these people. In the case of Telemachus, they go out of their way to disrespect him. And even if they had, we're told time and again that Penelope is not willing. Okay, you might say, that's still not a smoking gun. What's the big deal? Here it is. Finally, Antinous, one of the ringleaders of the suitors, drops a hint about plans to take power. "Well, Telemachus, only the gods could teach you to sound so high and mighty. Such brave talk. I pray that Zeus will never make you king of Ithaca, though your father's crown is no doubt yours by birth. Surely this must lie in the gods' lap, which Achaean lord will lord it over sea-girt Ithaca." So, if the kingship belongs to Telemachus by birth, how exactly would someone else become king, do you think? Murder, of course. Or war. Either way works. With that in mind, it makes a lot more sense why the suitors would not bother to earn Telemachus' respect, or get his permission to court his mother. Why they eat his inheritance day after day, although they are all quite rich themselves. Why they ignore his orders and boldly disrespect him, gaslighting him the whole time. Why they would insist that Odysseus is dead, even when Telemachus and Penelope clearly are not convinced of this yet. This, I think, is why Athena tells Telemachus that if the suitors will not obey him and leave, he must prepare to use force, because this weakening of his resources, of his power, is intentional. They do not intend to face the consequences of abusing the son of a great lord like this. They intend to kill him, take his power, or both. Probably just as soon as one of them earns Penelope's hand. Lastly, we meet Telemachus in this chapter. Penelope too, but we'll talk about her more next time. Although Telemachus is the son of Odysseus, whose fame is well known, and he's presumed to inherit the crown of Ithaca, he is downtrodden and depressed because of his circumstances, and he even daydreams about his father coming home to change them for him. He's not really taking responsibility or acknowledging his own ability to change the situation. This, however, is not entirely his fault. Without his father present for his entire life up to now, he lacks the confidence and self-esteem that would normally come from his tutelage. We see his feelings of inadequacy displayed prior to Athena's visit, both in his daydreaming and in this line. "Mother has always told me I'm his son, it's true, but I am not so certain." Knox tells us that this is not him questioning Penelope's fidelity, but rather his own self-worth. Am I really the son of such a great, famous, magnificent man? And we know that the Greeks would have understood this hearing it, because of Athena's response to him. Still, the clear-eyed goddess reassured him, "Trust me, the gods have not marked out your house for such an unsung future, not if Penelope has borne a son like you." She's affirming his worth. But she goes on and gives him counsel and encouragement, all of which shows us all that he has been missing with his father gone. But you, I urge you, think how to drive these suitors from your halls. Take my words to heart. Give your orders to all and call the gods to witness. Tell the suitors to scatter, each to his own place. Fit out a ship. Sail in quest of news of your long-lost father. Then, once you've sealed those matters, seen them through, think hard, reach down deep in your heart and soul for a way to kill these suitors in your house. You must not cling to your boyhood any longer. It's time you were a man. Telemachus is grateful for this advice. Oh, stranger, indeed I will. You've counseled me with so much kindness now, like a father to a son. She's giving him what he's always needed. And look at the change in him once he gets it. He gets his mother out of the room before confronting the suitors with all their wrongdoing and threatening them, more confident than before. And they all bit their lips, amazed the prince could speak with so much daring. I'll be lord of my own house and servants, all that King Odysseus won for me by force. Every responsibility he was too discouraged to take up before, he takes up now. He is no longer passive, but active, seeking to solve his problems and better his situation and that of his family, by force if necessary. It's important to address, however, his rather harsh words to his mother. According to Knox, these are both a manifestation of his newfound fighting spirit that Athena has instilled in him, as well as of a kind of resentment towards her for her role in the circumstances, a kind of adolescent rebellion. For after all, Penelope neither rejects a marriage she despises, nor can she bear to bring the courting to an end, while they continue to bleed Telemachus' household white. There's more going on with Penelope than her son believes, though, but we'll go over that in the next chapter. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel for more Great Books commentary. We'll see you next time.